Have you ever stopped to think about how many people are judged, ignored, or belittled before they even have the chance to say who they really are? What if I told you that, in one of the most exclusive environments in the corporate world, where power and status speak louder than character, a seemingly ordinary scene was about to transform into one of the biggest plot twists ever seen? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you more than you imagine. Imagine a grand business conference, one that exudes luxury in every detail. Perfectly positioned lighting, impeccable carpets, sophisticatedly decorated tables, and influential business people circulating as if that space were the center of the world. There, money doesn't just enter. It dictates rules, commands respect, and defines who deserves to be heard. It is in this setting that a billionaire known for his arrogance emerges, a man accustomed to being served, praised, and feared. For him, success has become synonymous with superiority, and every glance around reinforces the certainty that he is above any questioning. While strategic conversations take place and business cards change hands, a black woman enters the room. Nothing flashy, nothing exaggerated. Elegant, discreet, firm posture, attentive gaze. She doesn't arrive announcing positions or displaying power. She simply occupies her place, like someone who knows exactly where she is and why. But in that environment, where appearances are judged in seconds, that doesn't seem to be enough. Quick glances are averted, whispers arise, and her presence begins to be treated as something outside the expected norm. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt that, even before you opened your mouth, someone decided you didn't belong there? Small gestures begin to accumulate. An ignored greeting, a glance that passes by, a subtle comment, laden with contempt disguised as politeness. Nothing too explicit, but enough to make it clear, there, she is not seen as someone important, at least not yet. The self-assured billionaire doesn't even bother to hide his impatience. For him, Congress is a stage where only the big shots deserve attention. Every move he makes reinforces this cruel logic of those who believe that economic power defines human value. The black woman, in turn, remains calm. She doesn't react. She doesn't confront. She simply observes. And it is precisely this silence that begins to bother her, even if no one notices immediately. The atmosphere of power and status continues to dominate the environment, but something invisible begins to change. The attentive viewer senses that there is more to that scene than meets the eye. There is an untold story, an ignored detail, a truth about to come to light. It's impossible not to think this won't stay like this. And it is precisely this feeling that captivates, that generates indignation and curiosity at the same time. While the billionaire remains convinced that he controls everything around him, the woman stands there, steadfast, as if she knows that time is on her side. Each gesture of disdain only builds, without him realizing it, the perfect scenario for something bigger. What no one imagines is that this hasty judgment, based solely on appearance and prejudice, is about to exact a high price. And now, tell me, what happens when someone who thinks they're untouchable discovers they underestimated the most powerful person in the room? Take a deep breath, because from here on out the story takes a turn that no one at that conference was prepared to face. And perhaps that's exactly why this scene is so unsettling. Because in a way, it doesn't just happen at this luxurious business conference. It repeats itself every day, in other places, with other people in different ways. Those who watch can see themselves there, remember a moment when they were judged, ignored, or underestimated undeservedly. If this topic resonates with you, if any part of this story has touched you deeply, leave a comment below about what has resonated with you the most so far. Sometimes, sharing a similar experience helps more people than you imagine. While this woman remains silent, maintaining her composure in the face of veiled contempt, the atmosphere continues as normal. Conversations about millions, strategic alliances, inflated egos. but the weight of what is happening does not go unnoticed by those who observe attentively. And that is precisely why liking this video is so important. It's not just a click, it's a way of saying that this type of story needs to be told, that these situations should not be normalized, that there is value in giving visibility to narratives of justice, turnaround, and dignity. And if you've made it this far, it's because this content resonates with you in some way. So subscribe to the channel. Seriously. Every subscriber strengthens this community and helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear exactly this right now. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and continue bringing stories that provoke, move, and make you think. Because what's happening at this Congress is far from over. The billionaire remains confident, believing everything is under his control. The woman, on the other hand, observes, waits, and carries with her a truth that, when it comes to light, will completely change the course of this story. And it is from this point that everything truly begins to spiral out of control for the one who thought she was in charge. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it is precisely here that everything begins to weigh truly heavily. The atmosphere in Congress changes almost imperceptibly, as if the air were becoming thicker. Conversations dwindle, some laughter ceases, and that sophisticated environment, which until then seemed comfortable for those accustomed to being in charge, transforms into a stage of silent tension. The self-assured billionaire feels free to go beyond subtle contempt. He doesn't just ignore, he interrupts. In the middle of a speech, a polite attempt to contribute, he cuts the woman off without ceremony. His voice rises up, firm, impatient, laden with an authority he believes to be natural. He questions why she's there, suggests she might have mistaken the event for the wrong one, insinuates that the space is reserved for the right people. There are no shouts, no explicit scandal, but there is something even crueler, public humiliation disguised as formality. All this happens in front of investors, executives, influential business people accustomed to observing without getting involved. The silence that follows is deafening. No one laughs, no one intervenes. Some look away, others pretend to check their phones, as if that could erase the collective embarrassment. It is at this moment that the audience feels the full impact, because it's not just about a woman being disrespected. It's about a power dynamic that reveals an outdated mentality based on quick judgments and superficial decisions. A hidden truth begins to take shape there, even before it is revealed. And what's most impressive is her posture. The black woman doesn't shrink back, doesn't justify herself, doesn't try to prove anything. She remains standing, takes a deep breath, maintains a firm gaze. There is no submission, but there is also no impulsive confrontation. There is something much stronger happening inside, a clear awareness of who she is and the path she has traveled to get there. That calmness is not fragility. It is experience. It is a journey. It is someone who has already made decisions too difficult to be shaken by an attempt at devaluation. Meanwhile, the billionaire continues speaking, perhaps unaware that each word only deepens his own mistake. He believes he is reaffirming his power, but in practice he is exposing his inner workings. Prejudices, arrogance, and an inability to see beyond the surface. It's the kind of moment that separates true leaders from those who merely occupy a high position. And those watching clearly perceive this. Empathy completely shifts. The audience changes sides. This scene is moving because it reflects something bigger. How many times are competent people interrupted, invalidated, or put to the test simply for not fitting into an expected mold? How many stories of transformation begin exactly like this, in a moment of humiliation that seems too unfair to be real? The emotional impact doesn't come from exaggeration, but from identification. Everyone, to some extent, has been in the place of someone who has been silenced, or knows someone who has. The Congress continues, technically, as if nothing had happened, but something has already broken. There's a fissure in that well-rehearsed power dynamic. Some eyes begin to turn to the woman with curiosity, others with discomfort. There's a growing sense that the story isn't complete, that an invisible layer is about to emerge. And the billionaire, overconfident, doesn't realize that every extra second in that posture only amplifies the impending fall. This is the part of the story where indignation transforms into expectation, where the audience stops merely observing and begins to desire justice, not for revenge, but for balance. Because something there needs to be corrected. There's a revelation forming behind the scenes, a twist that begins silently, almost imperceptibly, but carries enormous weight. And it's precisely this contrast between appearance and reality that makes everything so powerful. Before moving on, write a simple but sincere sentence in the comments. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because it is precisely here that the story begins to tilt in an almost imperceptible yet decisive way. After the public humiliation, the atmosphere tries to return to normal, as if that moment could be swallowed up by the accelerated pace of the Congress. Conversations resume, glasses start clinking again, presentations continue. But something remains suspended in the air, a silent tension that doesn't dissolve so easily. And it is in this interval, in this space between what has been said and what has not yet been revealed, that the ignored detail emerges. It all begins casually. A businessman comments on an investment fund that has been moving impressive sums of money in recent months. Another mentions a company that has been influencing the strategic decisions of market giants. Names are cited with respect, almost with reverence. Billion-dollar projects are mentioned as examples of vision, intelligence, and audacity. For those who observe attentively, something begins to connect. There is an invisible thread linking these statements to the presence of that woman who, minutes before, was treated as if she didn't belong there. The audience notices first. The audience begins to feel that there's a hidden truth circulating in that space, something that hasn't yet found a voice, but is already beginning to take shape. The billionaire, on the other hand, remains too confident to notice the signs. He still believes he's in control of the situation, trapped in his own mentality of superiority. But little by little, small cracks appear. A name he recognizes, a familiar acronym, a project he himself tried to access in the past. None of this seems to make immediate sense, and it's precisely this confusion that begins to bother him. His face subtly changes. His previously relaxed posture adjusts. He furrows his brow, trying to follow the conversation more attentively. For the first time since arriving at the event, he truly listens, and the more he listens, the more he realizes that something doesn't fit. The irony of the situation unfolds on its own. He thought he was in control, but the tables had already turned. It just wasn't clear to him how or why. Meanwhile, the woman remains in the same place. She observes. She doesn't interfere. She doesn't correct anyone. There's a strategic calm there, almost disconcerting. It's not passivity, it's an awareness of the right time. She understands something that many ignore. Certain revelations don't need to be announced. They impose themselves when the context matures. Her journey to that Congress involved difficult decisions, silent choices, behind-the-scenes dealings that no one there knows. And now, all of this begins to emerge without her needing to say a single word. Some people around begin to connect the dots. They exchange discreet glances. The atmosphere changes again, but this time more profoundly. The impact isn't immediate, but it's cumulative. Each mention of the fund, the company, the project adds weight to her presence. And the billionaire feels it even without fully understanding. It's as if the ground beneath his feet is no longer firm. He tries to reassure himself, makes a comment here, another there, but the security is no longer the same. This is the moment when the story stops being just about humiliation and starts talking about transformation, a change in mindset, about how decisions based on appearance can blind even the most powerful. The audience realizes that it's not just a social upheaval, but a profound lesson about perception, ego, and truth. The woman, previously invisible to arrogant eyes, begins to be seen in a new light, not because she has changed, but because reality begins to assert itself. The most curious thing is that no one announces the turnaround. It happens behind the scenes of the conversation, in the details, in the silences, and that makes everything even more powerful, because it exposes how disconnected the billionaire was from the reality around him. He begins to mentally revisit what he said, how he acted, the tone he used, but it's too late to undo the impact. The feeling of unease grows, accompanied by an uncomfortable doubt. Who is this woman, anyway? And it is at this point that the anticipation reaches another level. The audience already knows that something big is about to be revealed. You know that this confusion is not accidental. There is a truth about to emerge from behind the scenes and take center stage. The billionaire doesn't see everything yet, but he feels he has lost something essential, control of the narrative. And when that happens, when power slips, through the cracks of arrogance, the downfall ceases to be a distant possibility and becomes a natural consequence. Before moving on, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it is here that the truth ceases to be merely a hunch and becomes impossible to ignore. The atmosphere, already charged with tension and expectation, reaches a silent breaking point. The side conversations diminish almost instinctively, as if something bigger were about to burst through that luxurious hall. There is no formal announcement, no rehearsed suspense. The revelation emerges simply, directly, almost casually, and precisely for that reason, devastatingly. Someone takes the floor to officially thank the main person responsible for financing the event. A name is mentioned. An investment fund is referred to with absolute respect. A billion-dollar project, which many there tried to access without success, is attributed to the visionary leadership of a single person. And then gazes begin to move slowly, like pieces being pushed by an invisible force, until they all meet at the same point, on the woman who, minutes before, was interrupted, belittled, and questioned about why she was there. The silence that settles in is unusual. It weighs heavily. It exposes. It's the kind of silence that allows no disguises. The hidden truth finally takes center stage. She wasn't just any guest. She wasn't there by chance. She was the main investor, the owner of the fund, the ultimate authority behind that entire business congress. Without her, none of it would exist. No stage, no panel, no negotiations. The impact is immediate. Some widen their eyes, others swallow hard. Some look away, embarrassed to have participated, even silently, in the initial disdain. But no one feels it more strongly than the billionaire. His face loses its color, his rigid posture crumbles. That seemingly unshakable confidence transforms into visible discomfort. He tries to smile, adjusts his jacket, takes a step forward, but it's too late. The mask has fallen. The contrast is stark. The same man who minutes ago questioned her presence now seeks careful words, tries to appear cordial, almost submissive. The change in tone is so evident that it becomes embarrassing. And it is at this point that poetic justice reveals itself in its purest form. There are no screams, no revenge, no returned humiliation. There is only the truth occupying the space that has always been hers. The woman maintains the same posture, calm, elegant, firm. She doesn't need to say, "I told you so." She doesn't need to bring up the disrespect. The impact of the revelation speaks for itself. Her journey, built far from the spotlight, emerges with enough force to silence any arrogance. Every decision made in the past, every unknown behind-the-scenes detail, every strategic choice now connects in that instant. The power she wields doesn't come from imposition, but from consistency. The billionaire realizes, perhaps for the first time, the magnitude of the mistake he made. Not only for being disrespectful, but for revealing a limited mindset, trapped in stereotypes and shallow judgments. He thought he controlled the game, but he didn't realize when the rules changed. Or perhaps they were never the ones he imagined. The impact of this realization is profound. It's not just a social downfall, it's an internal shock. For the viewer, this is a moment of catharsis. The twist doesn't happen to humiliate, but to create balance, to show that real power doesn't shout, doesn't interrupt, doesn't need to prove anything. It sustains itself. The transformation that happens there isn't just external. It transcends mindsets, exposes misguided decisions, and reveals how silent the truth can be until the right moment. The room remains silent for a few more seconds, as if everyone needed time to reorganize what they had just witnessed. Nothing was officially over, but everything had changed. The relationships, the perceptions, the roles. And while the billionaire tries to regain some dignity, the woman moves on, aware that certain revelations don't need a stage. They impose themselves when reality can no longer be denied, and it is precisely from this point that the story gains a new layer, deeper, more human, because now it is not just about who she is, but about what this revelation provokes in everyone around her, including those who believed they were above any consequences. Write in the comments, "That makes sense to me." Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because after the revelation, something changes not only in the environment but within the people. The woman finally speaks, and when she speaks, she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't seek applause. She doesn't retaliate with the same humiliation. The firmness comes from clarity. The elegance comes from the awareness of who she is and the path she has traveled to. Get there. Her words are few, well-chosen, and carry a weight that silences any attempt at interruption. She doesn't need to expose anyone. The truth has already done that on its own. What she says isn't a victory speech. It's a statement of position. She talks about decisions made behind the scenes, about the journey that led her to invest when few believed in her, about the responsibility that comes with real power. And above all, she speaks of respect, not as a favor, but as a principle. Each sentence acts as a mirror held up to the entire room. There are no direct accusations, but there is a clear message. The mentality that judges by appearances misses the chance to see value where it truly exists. The impact is profound because it doesn't stem from humiliation, but from maturity, and it is in this contrast that the symbolic fall of the billionaire is complete. There is no explicit scandal, but his reputation emerges from it differently. The power that seemed solid is now unquestioned. The ego, once inflated, has been exposed without anyone needing to point the finger. He realizes that he hasn't just lost a momentary position, he has lost credibility, and that, in the world he inhabits, weighs more than any financial loss. Around them, people absorb the scene in silence. Some feel touched, others uncomfortable. Many begin to revisit past decisions, hasty judgments, attitudes that seemed small but carried invisible impacts. The transformation happens there, discreetly, yet real. Because when the hidden truth is revealed, it doesn't only affect those who erred directly, it affects everyone who was watching. This story leaves a lesson that goes beyond that business conference. It speaks to the real lives of those who watch it. How many times has someone been underestimated for not fitting a certain mold? How many opportunities have been lost due to decisions based on stereotypes? How many incredible journeys began in silence, away from the spotlight, while others spoke too loudly? The impact of this reflection is personal, intimate, impossible to ignore. The woman moves on without needing to reaffirm anything. The space she occupies now wasn't conquered at that moment, it was simply recognized. And that difference changes everything. The billionaire, in turn, leaves with a lesson that no amount of money can buy, that power without conscience is fragile, and that respect isn't demanded, it's built. His ego doesn't crumble in public, but it weakens internally, where it truly matters. Stories like this happen more often than you might think. Not always at big events, not always in front of important audiences. Sometimes they happen in smaller rooms, in simple meetings, in everyday conversations. And the effect is the same. Those who judge too quickly end up revealing more about themselves than about the other person. That's the message that keeps echoing, even when the room is emptied and the lights are starting to go out. And while everyone tries to move on, something remains unresolved, like a question that won't go away, begging to be explored with even more care and truth. Comment below. That makes sense to me. If you've made it this far, it's because this story resonated with you on some level. Maybe because of the lesson, maybe because you identified with it, maybe because similar situations have crossed your path. So if this content made sense and stayed with you until the end, leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it helps this type of message continue to reach more people who also need to reflect on this. If you want to continue exploring stories that provoke thought, move you, and bring about this kind of reflection on power, choices, and truth, subscribe to the channel. The idea here is precisely that, to share narratives that go beyond the surface and invite you to look at reality with greater awareness. And write a sentence in the comments so I know you stayed with me until the end. It can be something simple like, "This message was for me." Sometimes a sentence says more than it seems. Oh, and there's a video over here that complements this topic very well. Click on it and continue the conversation there. There's still a lot more to come.